As you start using these tools, it's very important to have a conversation about the ethics of AI and how you can use them properly. First, let's talk about the limitations of AI. All of these tools are getting better and better, and who knows what the world will look like in a year, 2 years, let alone 5, 10 years. And I think it's great that you're in this class. We're learning these tools because it's going to help us stay ahead of the curve and know how to use these tools properly. Right now, these tools, especially like ChatGPT or Google Bard, they have some inaccuracies in the responses. They sometimes present false data, false information. It can appear like it's coming back as a fact when in fact it's not. And these are things that you have to be aware of. Now, I do think that this sort of is an overstated fact about it. This is obviously a true thing that not all of the data is coming back correct. But in fact, I've found that a lot of it is very, very, very accurate. That doesn't mean you don't need to edit your work or the work from ChatGPT. It doesn't mean you should just copy and paste without looking at it and doing fact checking. But it's just one of those things that you're going to hear continually from people because it catches it's a good headline that it's making mistakes. And of course it will, but it's just something to be aware of when you're creating content. And then there's other limitations as well, the uniqueness of the responses. Yeah, it's going to get better and better. The more creative your prompt is, the more input data you provide for it. It can change the way that it responds. But imagine a world where 5 years ago, everyone was writing those like top 10 listicle articles, BuzzFeed style articles. And still, people write those today, and they're not great content, partially because they all end up sort of sounding the same. And that's where AI kind of is right now. If 100 people prompt it with the same idea to write an article on the top 10 places to visit in Paris, those 100 articles are going to be very, very similar. And so as a creator, especially a creative person or business, you need to find a way to use it as a tool that assists but doesn't do all the work for you so that you still have a personality. Because I find that a lot of times, even if you put in the style prompts and the tone prompts, it lacks somewhat of a personality. You ultimately have that connection to your audience, and AI is not going to completely replace you right now anyways, where these tools stand. So I definitely think as a creative, as a content creator, if that's what you do, because there's so much content being put out there and every topic's been covered a million different ways and there's really no lack of content, it's more important than ever to have a direct connection with your audience, which you uniquely can provide. Besides the limitations, the ethics are a more important conversation. So there's 4 points that I want to just briefly cover, and you should talk about them with your team if you're using these tools as a team, or if you're using them yourself, come up with a way to be ethical in your approach of using these tools. So there's transparency, data privacy, copyright, and then bias and discrimination. If you're using these tools as part of a business service where you are writing content, where you are editing content, or anything else where you're using these tools to assist you, and the end result content is something that you yourself are not creating yourself, it's super important to be transparent about that when you are pitching your services. And maybe this is just a moral compass, a line in the sand that I believe in, but I don't think it's ethical for people to be pitching themselves as copywriters or editors or book writers and then just using these tools to do it for you. Second, we have data privacy. This is an issue that is a big one. And basically the issue is that tools like Google, ChatGPT, all of these, they're using information that has been scraped from the internet. And because it's AI, it's not like someone's choosing which article to use, which data, which book, which content to consume, which then makes up the AI mind that it can spit out in a response. And it might, in fact, receive some private data that should not be there. So that's why it's important to read whatever your responses are and you're putting out into the world, because if it is actually violating someone's privacy, that could be a huge deal. Similarly, you have copyright. It's scraping all this information from the internet, and there's going to be copyrighted information that it's using to formulate its responses. So you have to be careful about, so again, you just have to be careful about what you put out and try to have a step in your process to verify if what you are using has any sort of copyright issues. And lastly, bias and discrimination. Similarly, because it's using information that humans wrote, there might be bias and discrimination in that. For example, there might be articles or books that have inherent biases. And of course, that's sort of a blurred line as well. But for some people, there might be biases in some information on the internet. I think we can all accept that. And so these tools, if they're using that as part of a response, can be a problem too. I think most of you watching are likely good people who have good intentions of using these tools to assist you. You're not maniacally trying to figure out how you can take advantage of the system using these tools no matter what, even if it's hurtful to somebody. So that's why I trust that you're going to be doing it in the right way, but I do think it's important to think about all of these ethics and limitations as you start using these tools in your job or business.